Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Two of Europe's finest will clash in the Champions League when Pochettino's PSG take on Hansi Flick's Bayern Munich. Last year's final was incredibly close, with a single goal being enough, and Flick will be hoping to repeat the trick, whilst PSG will be hoping that Pochettino can do what Tuchel couldn't. Bayern aren't quite as perfect as they were last season, whilst PSG have also been inconsistent. But what tactics could we see both managers utilize? Let's take a look. To get an even more in-depth feel of each manager's tactics, you can check out these two videos, which will be linked in the comments below, as well as at the end of the video. You can also consider checking out my Patreon, where last season after the Champions League final, we looked at what Tuchel and Flick could have done differently, so you can see if Poch can avoid similar errors, and also see my score predictions in the upcoming video podcast. There are also plenty of other early and exclusive videos as well at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. Let's start by looking at the formations. Flick has quite a settled preferred 11, a 4-2-3-1 that often looks like this. The only slight question mark is whether it will be Coman or Gnabry starting on the left wing. Pochettino, on the other hand, has a few more dilemmas. He can line up in a 4-2-3-1, but depending on Neymar's fitness, he or Verratti could be in the 10 role. Deeper, there is also the question of whether it will be Paredes who will start, or Danilo or Gay, depending on the combinations higher up. If he lines up in a 4-3-3, Neymar or Mbappe could be wide left, and any of Mbappe, Di Maria, or even Moise Kean could start wide right. And Icardi or Ken could start up front, depending on the other personnel. But for now, we'll line them up like this. There are a lot of similarities between these two sides. Both are high possession, high pressing units. But let's start with what Bayern could look to do on the ball and how PSG could look to nullify them. Bayern will look to play out short initially, but PSG will push up as a team to press them and look to force them long. Lewandowski and Müller are good in the air, but PSG will fancy their chances of forcing a turnover using Kimpembe and Marquinhos. But Neuer and the centre-backs are so good on the ball, there is a chance Bayern will intentionally look to play short and take risks in order to draw PSG into a higher press. This will involve the centre-backs moving deep and the double pivots also looking to support. The left winger could then be crucial in causing the overload, as both Coman and Gnabry are instructed to tuck in narrow initially, so they could become the extra man centrally, either creating a direct outlet or allowing an extra man to be free deeper. PSG will, however, be hoping to force an error before it gets to that. In open play, things get more interesting, particularly in how Poch will look to deal with the hub of the team, Joshua Kimmich. Goretzka tends to push higher up, leaving Kimmich as the single pivot, and if Poch lines up in a 4-2-3-1, it means Neymar, who is still working his way back to fitness, will have to pick him up. The odds of him tracking Kimmich effectively throughout the 90 and looking to minimize his impact are low. And if he is caught higher up the pitch, Bayern will now have the numerical overload in midfield and space to exploit. This could be the argument for starting Verratti as the 10 instead, as he can do this more effectively. And Bayern look to position men between the lines early, often with Goretzka and Gnabry joining Müller. The right back is reluctant to follow centrally, as this creates a gaping hole for the pace of Davis to exploit. So the PSG midfield will face a decision. Pressing Kimmich high allows a man to receive freely between the lines to turn. But dropping deeper to cover means that one of the best midfielders in the world will now have buckets of space to make decisions. But aside from these central overloads, Bayern generally look to attack the wide regions most often, and we see the problem with PSG using this personnel because both Mbappe and Neymar do track at times, but getting them to do this for the full 90 is a hard ask. Down the left in particular, Bayern could be dangerous, with Gnabry in the half space forcing Florenzi narrow, and this allows Davis high early, meaning that if the winger doesn't track, these two wide men can combine to get crosses in. Even if they do track on the left, Alaba often moves into this zone to either draw the winger in to free the wide pass, or to draw a midfielder to free more men between the lines. This is the argument for Di Maria to start down the right, as he's more disciplined in tracking back. Down the right, Sané hugs the touchline, with Müller in support, and Pavard can stay deeper at times to allow this potential 1 versus 1 to develop. Sane can then cut in to look for the shot or across to the far post. But if Pavard is not tracked, he can cause an overload by creating a 2 versus 1 on the overlap to get the cross in. A way to potentially mitigate this for PSG is evening things up on the right, and down the left by keeping Mbappe higher. This could dissuade Pavard from bombing forward. The onus would then be on the left back to deal with Sane 1 versus 1, looking to show him onto his weaker foot down the line. Perhaps Diallo at left back instead of Kurzawa would give them more solidity, allowing them to do this. Crucially, Bayern will inevitably look to flood the box with Müller, Gnabry and Goretzka joining Lewandowski. So many numbers deep means it's vital for PSG's midfielders to track runners into the box. However, neither Verratti nor Paredes are great in the air. This is the argument for Danilo starting at defensive midfield, as he can better cope with the aerial threat. But generally, the best way to deal with this is to try and stop the initial cross. But this is also where PSG can be particularly dangerous, as Kimmich and Goretzka tend to overcommit. If Neymar is in the 10 role in particular, he could look to receive the first outball. Even if Pavard stays deeper initially, Mbappe has the beating of both he and Boateng and can be free for the outlet ball. Davis and Alaba will be able to combine well to cover Di Maria in all probability down the right, so the left will be crucial. Having Neymar rather than Verratti as the 10 will also allow the speed of this counter to be more effective. But how about PSG in the controlled build-up? Bayern will look to press PSG, who are unlikely to have any success going long, unless perhaps Icardi pulls onto Alaba, but this will still more than likely result in a turnover. But if Neymar plays as the 10, PSG have 5 players who are great on the ball in these deep regions, helping them to play out. However, Keylor Navas is not so great on the ball, so Bayern could sit off of him, covering the men instead, and force him to play a more difficult pass. But we know that in the press, Goretzka tends to push high onto the second pivot, and if PSG are willing to take risks, they can have success. With Verratti and Paredes starting, both are capable of twisting and turning away from a man, and having done so, will now have a 2 versus 1 between the lines. Alternatively, as good as Kimmich is, you don't want anyone to be 1 versus 1 against Neymar, as he can get past a marker to then lead the attack. But higher up the pitch, in contrast to PSG, Bayern's wingers are more likely to track back. But through the centre left is where PSG could find success, particularly if Goretzka is drawn higher. The right winger tends to move narrow to create a numerical advantage, and Verratti and Paredes are eye-of-the-needle passers, and could find either of the rotating men between the lines to potentially generate a shot using their individual quality. This is aided by Kurzawa potentially pushing high and wide early on, and this is one of the potential weaknesses for Bayern, as Sane can be caught out higher at times. If he does track, however, this often drags the team across on the cover, freeing Florenzi on the right, who can then receive the switch in a dangerous zone. And with the fullbacks providing the width, the front 4 can then look to attack the box, looking to get on the end of a low cross. These are just a few of the potential tactics and individual battles that could decide this encounter. But I want to know down below how you think these matches will go, and who you think will be the match winner. A special thanks to Aaron AG on Patreon for helping to make this video possible. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.